Thank you. Now the pressure's on. Quick, someone be stimulating.
I guess I can be stimulating. I have a question. So you mentioned a few times in the Slack that you're using pseudonymization. I knew I was gonna butcher that. Can you like talk about the difference between anonymization and pseudonymization and why you might choose one over the other?
Yeah. It all basically comes down to the statistics table. In Koha, prior to pseudonymization, the assumption was you might be anonymizing your reading history by turning on the Koha privacy settings, which means that in the old issues table, where Koha remembers every past checkout you've done, the borrower number of the patron gets replaced with the anonymous borrower number there. So in the old issues table, you can't see which item got checked out to which patron when. But Koha is meanwhile also keeping the statistics table, which is not a record of checkouts, it's a record of transactions. So while we're no longer remembering that this loan that went from this date to this date was to this patron, we are still remembering that, on January 1st, Jason checked out this particular book to Rebecca. There was a checkout that was performed by this staff member for this patron with this item, which is still reading history, just kind of a different sort and presented differently and saved differently, but still like very much there. So pseudonymization, turning on the pseudonymization system preferences doesn't do anything to that statistics data. It all stays there, but it starts making a parallel data structure that records every time you do a checkout or a check-in, or there's one other type of action that happens in there that is directly related to a patron. It records a pseudonymized version of that transaction that is a staff member did a thing with a patron. That patron within the pseudonymization table is identified by a unique string. It's like a long list of gibberish that doesn't in any way tie back to that actual person, but is uniquely identifiable within the pseudonymization table, so that you can still run a report that says, in December 2022, how did my checkouts break out in terms of patron category? Because pseudonymization is remembering that this patron, who is this long unidentifiable string, they're a regular patron and they live in this zip code, and it's not remembering anything identifiable, but that like big demographic stuff, and it's still remembering, so you can still run those reports. I could find a report that just kind of shows what some of that data looks like. Because since it's pseudonymized, I'm perfectly happy to like show it on the screen. So yeah, that's the vocabulary difference. Anonymized means we have no idea who did what. Pseudonymized means we have an idea of a unique borrower, a statistical borrower for each patron. They're known by pseudonyms instead of their actual name. They don't have their card number. You just have this long string of gibberish. Pseudonymization is, however, hard to spell and therefore hard to find in statistics. Here we go. So this is, I think, yeah, just all of our pseudonymized transactions. So it knows that this borrower, whatever that long string means, they did something. And at that time, this is all the information we recorded about them. Oh, here we go. They checked something out. They checked out this item. So it's like the statistics table, only a lot more information about each individual patron. So we are remembering, yeah, like their category and their home library. sort one and sort two, all the stuff that normally, like if you were writing a report that looked at statistics, you'd join in the borrowers table to get that data. This is instead recording what that information was at the point of the transaction, which is also nice because it saves you that like hassle of reporting on patrons who have since been deleted. So then it's just, once you've turned on pseudonymization and started building this data up, it's just a matter of letting that accrue enough time period of data that then you can tell Koha to start forgetting about the statistics table. That's the step we haven't gotten to yet because we want to just sort of pad that statistics data out a little bit, because it is going to be taking some data and chopping it off. We're going to know less about our past circulation than we used to. Because I turned on, and I should pull this up, I turned on the pseudonymization system preferences in June. So we've only got 6-7 months of that data. So if you turn on pseudonymization, you also need to tell it what are the things you want to record about your patrons at every transaction. And I just left those all on. And what are the things you want to record about the transaction at each transaction? Most of these are item stuff. And yeah, so then at some point, probably like in June of 2023, we'll ask Bywater to update our cleanup database cron job to start deleting the statistics table when it's more than like 6 months old. And again, that's going to lose us some old data from before pseudonymization was turned on. But overall, I think we should be able to kind of roll forward with a slightly limited data set.
Which isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this sort of came up because I started digging into totally unrelated. Somebody asked if I could add like annual savings, lifetime savings to checkout slips. So then I was like, yeah, I can look at that. So then I was like, oh wait, so this borrower has opted out of keeping their checkout history, but if I query that information from statistics, it's still there. So I was just trying to wrap my head around like what each thing does, and yeah, how well our privacy is actually doing. So but I did get some stuff showing up on my slips, so that was exciting.
So Jason, you were able to get lifetime savings to print on your receipt?
Not lifetime, because my statistics table is huge and I'm using a report to pull that data, so like it takes too long to run the report between like transaction and checkout. But my year to date is working at this point. But I was running that on statistics, and I think I want to run it on old issues so that if the borrower's opted out, then it's not going to give them a year to date, because that's telling them, hey, we're keeping that information and I don't want them. So I'm still cracking on that, but yeah, basically what I did was I ran the report, I put it into like a local storage variable, and then that lets me pull it on the print slip screen and populate it there. And it seems pretty rapid, like if I check out a series of items pretty fast, and then it'll still show up on the slip. Like the report runs fast enough. But it did bring up this whole privacy concern in my head, in the back of my head.
And it is like, there's a big difference between having that data accessible via reports versus like actually just visible right there in the patron record, but it's still not particularly private. That's a low bar, especially while we're out here. Like, I'm trying to encourage all of my staff to feel real empowered to use reports and ask for reports data, like, but not this data. We don't look at that. Tangential to the question of circ history, I got surprised by this bug in 2205, and I thought I'd wave it at y'all and make sure that you also saw it. Did you know that Koha just started anonymizing holds just like it anonymizes checkouts? All of our patrons are set to never keep reading history. So the day after we got upgraded, every time one of their holds completed, their borrower number gets removed from the old reserves table, just like it gets removed from the old issues table, which is fine. We probably don't need that data most of the time. We had a little like freak out of, oh my God, what if somebody like, that means if I've got a hold sitting on the hold shelf and I don't pick it up in time and that hold gets canceled. And then an hour later, the patron shows up and says, I need my book that was on hold. What was it? We don't really have that data anymore, which we've lived with. It was like, oh God, data is missing. And of course, it is in the action log still. They remember that this whole got canceled and who the thing was for. So, and to rewrite a report to find people and items in the action logs without card numbers.
I would say that that just hasn't affected us too much because of our situation where we're still opt out instead of opt in. So most of my patrons are keeping their history, which we'd like to reverse that at some point. But right now, yeah. And we lived without holds history for quite a while.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't even realize there's a tab on the patrons page that you can look back to the holds history.
I have a report that just like finds every entry in the action logs for a hold given a patron and a biblio number. And I feel like it is the report I use most often when staff come up to me. This thing went weird. What happened? Let's track where that hold transferred from and all that. So it was definitely one I had to rewrite to still be workable with a little less data.
Sorry, Jason, did you say there's a way for the patron on the patron account to view their hold history?
Yeah, so that's what changed in 2205 was the ability for them to say, no, I don't want you to keep that anymore. But like if the staff pull up the patron's account, there's a tab on the left for holds history. And I think that's in the OPAC too.
We use Aspen, and I couldn't find it in our Aspen view, but that could just be because of that.
And I don't think Aspen has a way to show that. And Aspen then is like a whole separate search history too.
Yeah, I don't think it's available yet. Or I haven't seen it in Aspen. Because we use Aspen as well, so.
Yeah, we use Aspen and not the Koha OPAC at all. So all of our patrons are set to never keep history, and there's no way for them to enable their history in Koha, but they can turn on their Aspen reading history, which just remembers all their checkouts there, where we can't see them. Although I suppose we definitely could see them if we asked the Aspen people to give us that data. And I guess most importantly, like law enforcement could see them if they really were determined to do so.
And I just realized I didn't turn this on, but there is a system preference called OPAC holds history that turns it on and off for the patron in the vanilla OPAC.
I remember that settings, but I couldn't remember if it was for Aspen or if it was Koha. So it's Koha. Yeah.
And from what I understand, I don't have Aspen, but if Koha can do it, Aspen can probably do it too, right?
I'm going to try it and see.
Eventually, I mean, maybe it needs to be developed in, but
yeah, there are still a bunch of things that that Aspen theoretically could get this data from Koha and show it, and it just doesn't yet.
So unrelated, but I was wondering if anybody had used, was it, what do the cool kids say? 2FA, two-factor authentication. Has anybody used that yet? And how did it go?
Looks like a general no.
Okay.
We talked about it a little bit. We are going to take advantage of the new password expiration period by patron category. So like we're leaving all of our patron passwords alone. They're going to remain very simple 4-digit pins because we don't want to make our patrons do it any more complicated. But we are making all of our staff have strong passwords that expire every 6 months because now you can do that. And so we talked about how like really for best security practices, we should turn on two-factor authentication and make everybody do that. Because really that's why we're increasing that difficulty for staff. We know that they have access to a whole bunch of sensitive data and they should have to do something more strong than just the last 4 digits of their phone number to get into that. But we didn't have the will to push to two-factor authentication. I think that would be a little bit much for some of our staff.
That's what I was thinking myself, but I mentioned it to IT and he was like, oh God, we need to do that. And
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of, they're not wrong.
no, but I'm worried about knowing some of our circulation or our material handlers, it would blow their mind. So I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah, our IT department just initiated this for our city email, and my staff is losing their mind just trying to wrap their head around it. So I don't know, maybe they will though, and that'll be like the forerunner to doing it. But it's been interesting for sure.
Yeah, I might actually steal that idea and suggest it to IT, see if they can get the email
Start
done
with that,
first.
yeah.
Yeah. Ease people into it. That's what, yeah.
Yeah.
But Andrew, I was going to say that that expiring users or staff passwords, I was liking that idea. I haven't brought it up to anybody else yet, but I was going to play around with it. Has it worked pretty well? I mean, who's played with it?
I've only gotten theoretical and I've played with it with a test patron. I haven't actually set it up for our staff yet. I'm waiting until our next staff meeting so I can give them some fair warning.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I was waiting
Yeah.
for the Q&A just to go through there and see if there was anything that they mentioned about either of those before like rolling it out or talking to anybody about it. So
it was easy enough on my test patron. If I let my staff password expire, there is still a password reset option where you go through and you give your email address and you get an email and you click the link off of it. Just like if a patron forgets their password and needs to get into the OPAC. And it worked fine. It was several steps. So I did set up a patron emailer cron job to email staff members whose password is going to expire in 2 weeks. Like just wrote a short email that said, you should go reset your password now. Like you will be sad if you have not. This is like this laid out generally, you will be able to do a password reset, but like, please don't put yourself in that position. And then at 2 weeks, and then at 1 week, and then at 1 day, and we'll see how it goes. But it all seems theoretically workable. I just need to make sure not to make all of the staff have their first password expire on the first day. Because then we're all locked out of Koha and we're all sad.
oh, they'd tar and feather me if I did that.
Like we're only 13 people. I think we can say right now.
Yeah, if you roll that out, let us know how it works. I'm really curious.
Okay. Anybody else have fun or messy things coming out of 2205? How about sequel questions or fun sequel adventures? Has anyone written a really cool report?
I have a question. This one came across my desk yesterday, which I haven't had a chance to like sit and think about it, but if anybody can help me out in advance, that would make it so much easier. Items that are returned and where they go once they're returned, as in, do they go to the shelf? Do they go to a hold? I'm trying to figure out how I would structure a report that would look like it's probably an action log. Somehow, any ideas, or does anyone have anything that they've done similar to that? They're trying to determine how many returns are done in a day, which we can do that, but where do they go from there? But I'm also having a hard time deciphering what's returned at the branch versus what's coming from our delivery, because there's no way to say this is a delivery because they all look the same. So I was wondering if anyone had ever done anything like that or tried to.
Do you have Koha to set to record a local use when something gets scanned in that was not a checkout?
No, we have statistical patrons for that.
So then is it the case that just whenever you scan a barcode, it records in the statistics table as a return?
I think so, yeah.
I think if you switch that local use toggle, I mean, that wouldn't make a great local use count for you. It would be inflated, but it would at least make it so there would be a distinction between a scan of the barcode that actually ended an issue versus a scan of a barcode that did not, because it would record return if it actually ended an issue, and it would record local use if it were anything else.
Okay.
That get you part of the way.
We used the recently returned cart function. I was wondering if there was some way I could say, if this went from here to cart, that would be a shelf return. And if cart was missing, then that was something else. Because everything that's checked in that's put on the shelf is sent to cart. That's kind of where my brain was kind of, like I said, it just came across my desk yesterday, so I haven't really had the time to noodle it. But
Do they not go to shelving cart if you're receiving a transfer rather than actually checking something in?
well, I was thinking if it went to cart, then it was the shelf, and if it didn't go to cart, then it was a hold. Like absence of cart equals hold. Yeah, I can try it out. So
Might be true. I can't remember if it changes that shelving location regardless.
oh, I don't know. I'd have to test that out. So okay. But yeah, that was one that I was, because other systems I've used have had two separate categories for something that was in transit between locations. That was a different class versus something that was returned in the book drop. So I could at least chart the path that way. So this was something that was an interesting question. I said, my first thought was, I'm going to ask the group.
Yeah, I don't know that. So Koha's going to record that there was a transfer and that transfer ended and that transfer was related to a hold. And it's going to record the scan of the barcode that happened that triggered the ending of the transfer. But I don't know that it's going to tie those two events together in any direct data way.
Okay.
You could join the tables together on a timestamp and an item number, which would be like, kinda, it'd mostly work.
All right. Well, I guess I'll play around with it and see, and just, go in with low expectations. Thanks.
Doesn't sound like anyone else has things they want to talk about. But now I'm just sort of moving slowly forward until someone thinks of something. Okay, well, I'm disinclined to hold you all hostage. We have half an hour. I think I'll hang around in case someone suddenly thinks of something, but otherwise I think we had half an hour worth of stuff to talk about this month. We reconvene the second Tuesday of February, which is a date, the 14th, Valentine's Day. We'll have a very special romantic sysadmin meeting. Could talk about linked accounts or something.
SQL joins.
Yeah. Everybody bring your most romantic report. All right. Well, y'all have a good day.
Thank you
Thanks
very
very
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Andrew. Take care.
Thanks.
You
Good
too.
day.